So I've been watching several of Aaron Jacobs' videos about reactionary sociology and his sort of account of the degraded state of politics in America. And he's got a lot of provocative things to say, and it's got me thinking quite a bit about um, my own feeling as regards the political sphere. Um, I think of myself more as a philosopher or a philosopher poet on my good days, and so politics is something that I find frustrating because as a philosopher, one who creates or at least strives to create concepts, and as a poet or an artist or one who aspires to be such, um, I'm constantly trying to overcome and even destroy established orders, whereas politicians often seem inherently conservative in that they are trying to maintain an already established party and to constantly return the artists and the poets and the philosophers to a state of predetermined thought and behavior. So, poets and philosophers are inherently creative and disruptive of political order, and this goes back to Plato, and I kind of jokingly called myself a Republican in a comment on Aaron Jacobs under one of his videos, in that my reflection upon politics begins with Plato's Republic. And in that dialogue, Plato will speak of, he says that poets, or at least he has Socrates say that poets may indeed need to be banned from his ideal city because they unsteady the emotional regime of the soul. And if the citizens of Plato's Republic are unduly influenced by poets and by artists and by other philosophers, certainly, as well, then they will sort of fall from the ideal structure which Plato has designed to govern society. So the only poets that are allowed are the ones that Plato, the philosopher king, has deemed to be in support of those psychological regimes that are in service of his republic. Art for art's sake, creation as the free pursuit of individuals and of communities of individuals is not something that it seems, at least on the surface, that Plato would have wanted in his republic. Of course, a moment's reflection will reveal that Plato is himself a poet and a philosopher, of course, and that his authoring of the Republic was a radical political act in itself, at a time when the Athenian city-state was certainly fallen from its prior ages of glory, maybe the height of which was the period when Pericles was the leader of the Athenian people. So if we put Plato in his context, his proper historical context, he seems less of a conservative than he sometimes appears to us today. So what does it mean that I begin my political reflection as a Republican, or as a Platonist, as a reader of the Republic, a rereader of the Republic as well, always returning to it? Well, it means that when I try to think about what happens in the city, in human society, I often end up turning to the cosmos, or that is, as Socrates did, I walk beyond the walls of the city, and I move into the wild. And of course, I'm in a city park here. Not exactly wilderness, but there's something about thinking politics in the context of cosmology and of ecology that strikes me as especially important today, in particular when we face an ecological crisis, and when human industry, the human economy, has so remade the face of the planet that it has initiated a new geological epoch. We're in the Anthropocene now. The human presence on the planet has also initiated the sixth, or is in the process at least of initiating the sixth great mass extinction event in the history of this planet. The last one was 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs went extinct, probably as a result of an asteroid. So human beings are having quite an impact on the planet, and the question is, will we transform our mode of presence to the planet and our political and social structures in time to avoid our own extinction, as well as the extinction of a large number of other plants and animals that we currently share this planet with. And so when I try to think human politics, I often think in terms of cosmopolitics, and I look to the larger Earth community for cues, for inspiration as to how to move forward. Human beings have grown increasingly obsessed with themselves. YouTube, Facebook, social media are an example of the further intensification of this self-absorption. It's almost to the point now where human beings have grown autistic to their earthly surroundings, to the other creatures that call this planet home. We no longer know how to communicate with other forms of life. We no longer know or recognize, or rather experience ourselves in relation to the elements, to earth, to sky, fire, water, air. We've become blind to the very things which constitute our own lives. We've become alienated even from our own life, not to mention our labor. Not to say that I'm a Marxist. Certainly, I think Aaron has some interesting historical recontextualizations of Marx that have got me thinking. That he basically said that Marxism was a revolution on behalf of intellectuals, and that intellectuals sort of used the laborers, the workers, the proletariat as their justification for this revolution that really was only serving them and not necessarily serving the laborers. And this is a fascinating question as regards the Marxist leanings of many academics in our day and age. I think Marx's analysis remains important for us in trying to think beyond capitalism, or even just trying to think capitalism, period, which I think Aaron and I are in agreement is part of the problem at this point in the history of our species and the history of Earth. But I don't know that Aaron would agree so much with my cosmological or ecological orientation. He might collapse these, especially the ecological orientation, into a sort of just a mainline progressivist liberal tendency. But I would want to encourage him maybe not to do that so quickly. I think that there's something more radical at work in this idea of cosmopolitics, and I've spoken a bit about this before. I'll post a link to a presentation I gave before some colleagues of mine at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, which Aaron may have heard of because of the way that the Esalen Center is, or the retreat center is characterized in Adam Curtis's film, which features the story of Edward Bernays and the human potential movement and so on. So I look forward to thinking with Aaron's, for me at least, unorthodox perspective on the history of politics in America, and I hope that he and I can engage the issue of, at least engage politics in the context of the issue of an ecological crisis, and also of just a new cosmological orientation in regards to what the scientific enterprise has revealed to us about the nature of the history of our universe and the evolution of life on this planet. I think there are lessons to be learned in the 14 billion year history of our universe and the 3.5 to 4 billion year history of life on Earth. There are lessons about unity, but also about plurality that are directly relevant to politics, I think. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I look forward to hearing back from Aaron and anyone else who has a stake in this discussion. So thanks for listening.